Hey, what's happening, guys? It's Dave Brown here with JamPlay.com, and it is week 3 of playing the changes. This course is all about lining up the cage pentatonic positions for each specific chord in a progression, sticking to diatonic, of course, keeping it simple. First week we took on the 1 chord. Second week we took on the 4 chord, which used all the same 5 shapes as the 1 chord. Today we're taking on the 5 chord, which is still using all the same 5 shapes. So we're going to still play the same licks today. We're going to still play the same chord shapes as we come through these exercises. We're just going to a different chord off the 1 chord. Before we get started with all the licks and such, I'd like to take a moment to kind of review how we're thinking about placing these. The faster you can place these shapes, the better you're going to be able to kind of play the changes. So knowing what string and what finger each shape is based off of is going to really improve how well you are able to execute this stuff. So there are 2 shapes that are based off the 6th string. There are 2 shapes that are based off the 5th string. There's only 1 that's based off of the 4th string. And as I like to kind of think of it, it's kind of based off of the 6th string as well. So it's not too bad. For instance, our 1 chord, we're sticking in the key of D this week. There are other keys you can try this against, and I'd recommend that because that'll be helpful. But when placing a D chord, again, off of our lowest D chord in this position will be off of the 5th string, 5th fret. And since we'll place our pinky on that, that's going to give us the C shape. Off that same note, off the C, so 5th string pinky is the C shape. 5th string middle finger is the A shape. Or you can think of it off of your 1st finger if you're playing the chord. But generally, if we're playing the scale, I'm constantly switching back and forth. So that's a good one to know, but think about it as your middle finger because we're placing the pentatonic scale. So off of the 6th string moving up, you'll have 2 positions based off of the E shape, or the E string, I should say. You got the G shape below with your pinky on it. And the 6th string will be the E shape above it. And then you only have 1 more shape. You have the octave above that. You can think of the 4th string. You get the D shape in there. But you can also, if I'm almost always picturing that chord there, okay, if you're getting that. And then at that point, you're just back to the C shape. So the one exercise that I mentioned before that is worth mentioning again is just take 1 shape and call out random notes. So for instance, if we're placing the C shape, we're thinking pinky on the 5th string. So if I say A flat, I'm going to find A flat. If I say D, I find D. If I say F, if I say E, if I say G. So you're just trying to find it as fast as you possibly can, and then knowing that the pentatonic scale fits around that shape. Okay, so that's worth doing with every single one of these. There's another placement exercise that's really good too, that you can kind of do in context of what we're going to do today. So for instance, if I'm playing over the 1 chord with a C shape, well, let's think about what's in open position. If you're playing the C chord in open position, your 5 chord is the G. So in the key of C, your 5 chord is the G. So in the shape key of C, which is technically a D right now, it's still going to be a G shape that lines up with the 5 chord. But you can also think like this. So for instance, a really good exercise would be to find your 1 chord. Okay, so for instance, let's say we find the C chord, C shape I should say. Then as soon as you place that first position, your 1 chord's position, you've immediately defined a 4 fret span, and then it's your job to be as lazy as possible and not deviate from that 4 fret span. You might have to deviate 1 fret, but that's not too bad. But yeah, so like last week we wanted to go to G. Our closest G is the question is it on the 6th string, is it on the 5th string, or is it on the 4th string? Well, there's 1 on the 4th string, but it also happens below, and that's our middle finger on the 6th string. So what shape goes with the middle finger on the 6th string? E shape. So that's what we did last week, but now we got to find an A. Well, A is a whole step above it. My pinky naturally falls on that. Again, I'm still frets 2 to 5. I haven't moved at all. So since my pinky falls on it, because in theory, you could put your middle finger on it too, but that would be shifting. You would be moving the E shape up and using it for both the 4 chord and the 5 chord. That's not what we're trying to do for this course. So since our pinky naturally lands on it, that's going to be the 5 chord with a G shape. So yeah, let's just review some of those, and we'll do the same exercise again and again and again up the neck. So for the C shape, we only have 1 octave worth of the lick. The lick again is going to start on the root, go flat third and into the major third. Okay, so in this case it's index, middle, hammer onto the ring finger. You got the 5th scale degree, up to the 6th, up to the root. And again, you know, we went over it last week and the week before, so hopefully you already have this under your fingers. My apologies if you're just tuning in. Concepts hopefully should still make sense, but as far as playing in real time, probably not. And that's all right. That's all right. So the strum pattern is going to go down, up, 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 down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. So again, each position is going to have a chord shape that you can comp. And then you have the lick that might happen 1 octave in the case of the C or multiple octaves in the case of the others. And we're just going to do that same essential exercise this week. When we're going to the 5 chord in that position, we're going to the G shape. So the G shape starts here with a root. You can either slide or hammer in from the 3rd fret to the 4th fret. You have 2 and 4 on the 4th string. Your root's up there on the... Again, it's always root, flat 3 into the 3rd, 5, 6, 1, 6, 5, flat 3, pull into 2, and root. For this chord shape, again, you got your ring finger on the 4th fret of the 5th string, then barring that A chord, right? Just with a G shape. You can also put your pinky on top. I'm going to assume you guys have been doing your homework and kind of got these under your fingers, so I might blow through some of the vague details. And by vague, I mean not vague at all. It's written out for you. You know, hopefully that helps. Again, it's what we've already practiced. So we got D for 2 bars, or 4 bars, I should say. So if there's only 1 octave, we do that twice. For the A. And then there's another one starting on the 2nd fret of the 3rd string. Slide 1st into the 2nd on the 2nd string. Up to 5, 2, 5, 2, 5. Then rolling over to the 5th fret on the 3rd string. Sliding into that 4th fret before we get to that root. Okay, so those are the 2 positions we're going to line up. Again, the exercise is lick, chord, then move on to the next chord, lick, chord, lick, chord. You want to be able to do this with just chords. It's worth taking your time just playing the chords. And we'll talk about trying to combine the positions a little later like I did last week. That's all extra credit stuff. Our job is to play this, so we should probably play it because you're probably getting antsy. So again, we're in the key of D. I have other keys in there if you want to try this in other keys, which you should. But for right now, we're just doing the key of D. Here we go, guys. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's the exercise. You can keep going with it. You can play it all day, all day, all day. Again, you want to be able to comp the chords, just the chords, all day. Okay. That's especially becomes fun and less limiting. First of all, those might be voicings that you've never really lined up like that before. But it also becomes fun when you get all 5 of them going, and then you're able to kind of like kind of really move your way up the neck and just, I have all this time to play a D chord, then I have all this time to play an A chord, go nuts kind of a thing. But don't drop the groove. That's the number one thing. It's also worth just playing the lick and seeing how that lines up. Because, for instance, when we play the chord in between the lick and then it goes to the next chord, you don't necessarily see how close some of them are and how it would line up. So, for instance, it's worth thinking, what? You know, especially if you go to this one right here, you start to realize it's basically the same shape. So you get that same thing happen. Likewise, it's going to happen in A to the next shape, the A to the E shape. So it's also good to think about in open position. I'm not sure if I said this already, but whatever your 1 chord is and your 4 chord or 5 chord is in open position, that's how it's going to be. So for instance, we just started with a C shape in the key of C. Our 5 chord is G. So that's how it's going to be here. And likewise, when we move up 1, we're going to start with an A shape for our next exercise. If you're in the key of A and you're playing a 1 chord, your 5 chord is going to be E. So that's how it's going to be here too. It's never going to change. 5 shapes. Very consistent. It's a little overwhelming at first, but it's the same thing over and over and over again. So if you really memorize how 3 of them line up times 5, you're good. So again, this goes back to finding the root. So for instance, we're placing our middle finger on the 5th string, right? So that means it's the A shape. So if we wanted to find our closest A, again, there's one here, but there's also one here. So we get the E shape. And that's what's going to line up for our next position. The D shape, what? D chord to A chord. Technically, the A shape going to the E shape. That's what's most confusing for a lot of players. Like, I know we're trying to play D to an A, and then I say an A shape, but we're using the A shape for the D chord, but we're not using it for the A chord. We will use it for the A chord. We will use all the shapes for the A chord. We will use all the shapes for the D chord, but that's how it works. So it can be a little confusing. Try not to let that bug you. Hopefully you're seeing the patterns line up anyway, just like you would in open position. So for the A shape, we got 2 of them. We're going to start with our middle finger on the 5th fret of the 5th string, sliding 3rd fret into the 4th fret, hopping up to the 7th fret, likewise 4 and 7 on the next string, right back down. Then we'll slightly shift our ring finger to that 7th fret on the 4th string to make it go, pinky, ring, index finger from 8, 5, and 7. And then it's going to be another octave. We're going to go root, okay? Sliding into the 3rd, 5 and 7. So we're going 6 to 7 on the 2nd string for the sliding in the 3rd. 5th and 6th up on the 1st string for frets 5 and 7. Is this confusing enough for you? It's the 5th scale degree going to the 6th scale degree from frets 5 and 7. Roots all the way up. We're going to jump out of the position for just that 1 note because it's worth it. Then we're hopping immediately back down to 7. We got 5. 6 pulling off into 5. Root on that 5th string. Just the 3rd string. 7th fret. So yeah, I'm even confusing myself now. Okay? So we got 2. And we already determined that's going to line up with the A shape. So the A shape's got 2. A chord, E shape. See? Again. Middle finger's going into that 6th string, 5th fret. Sliding 3 into 4. So that one's exactly identical to the A shape. A lot of consistency, surprisingly. Which is why, anyway. So then the next one for the E shape, for our A chord, it's going to be 7th fret on the 4th string, sliding 5 into 6 on the 3rd string, 5, 7, root up on the top for that 5th fret. 5 sliding back into the 4, root there. Okay, so those are the 2. Again. As far as voicing's going, you can, like I mentioned in the first lesson, the second lesson, you can really break these up into groups of 3. That's like the triad thing. That's totally worth it too. You can do groups of 4. That first string's a little difficult to get in this shape, so don't stress over it. I'm probably just gonna play the go-to bar chords for these because these are so comfortable. But you can break them up however you want. Let's play. Let's just do it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Guys, I'm losing focus. Second option. Okay, so that's it. So our next position, again, you want to take your time with that. Only do the licks, only do the chords. Once you get 2 positions, it's really fun to kind of dance back and forth. I don't want to get ahead of myself. Okay. Excuse me. So our next position, we just played an A shape. What comes after A? C, A, G. Luckily, we already practiced that down here with the A. It's going to be exactly the same. Now we're playing for a D. We found D on the 6th string, 10th fret. That's a D. Put your pinky on it. You got a D. Get the G shape for that. Our 4 chord, just kidding, we're going to the 5 today, is going to be, any guesses, any guesses? We got to find, okay, so by placing the G shape up at the 10th fret, that means we're fret spanned 7 through 10. And then it's our job to find the closest A, okay? Is there A on the 6th string? You got B, C, and D. No, that's pretty much screwed. You got E, F, and G on the next string. There's that A. First finger on the 4th string. After the E shape comes the D shape. So you gotta like that. You wanna be able to find it like, okay, what is under the fingers? But if you're climbing up the neck like this, you gotta understand it's not crazy rocket scientists either. Scientists? It's not crazy rocket science. Apparently English is though. You just want to be able to follow the pattern. So for instance, Cage is spelled C-A-G-E-D. C-A-G-E-D. But it's like the days of the week. You can go Monday to Monday, you can go Friday to Friday. It doesn't matter. So same thing is happening with the A shape. A, B, or A, B, C, D, E, F. C, A, G, E, D. C, A, G, E, D, C, A, G, E, D. And that's where we're at down. So they're both doing their exact same thing. Sorry, I'm swinging my guitar around. Probably giving Chris hell, trying to fit me in frame. Yeah, that's the idea. So with the D shape, we got a couple full-on licks. So again, we're gonna borrow from the root down from the E, and then we're just hopping up. So you got that root at the fifth string, fifth fret of the sixth string. My middle finger is gonna go to the eighth fret, hammer into the ninth fret with a ring. Then you got 7 9 7 9. Right. Coming back down, and then your middle finger is gonna hit that flat 3, pull off the 2, and back to the root. The chord voicings for this one kind of suck. Not all of these are meant to be chord voicings necessarily, but it's important to see the shape because we're going to try and solo with it, or hopefully you take the time to try and solo it. I'll just kind of point you in the right direction. That's not necessarily what we're trying to learn for this class, though. We're just trying to see these positions line up. So for a D shape option for voicing, I would go index, index, ring, pinky. It's really just a power chord. It's not the major third in there. Or I would go index on that 5th, 7th fret of the 5th string, 4th string, just kidding, and then make that D shape up on top with 2, 3, and 4. So we got the one below, and then there's another one here. We're going to start with our middle finger on the 7th fret of the 4th string, sliding 5 into 6 for that flat 3 into major third. There's our 5th, which is up at the 9th fret on the 3rd string. 6 is on the 7th fret, if that's not confusing enough, with the 2nd string, and then we're going up to the 10th fret for the root. Then at that point, so notice I'm stretching my ring finger to slightly shift, up to the pinky, coming back down, 5th right there with our ring finger, pinky's going to slide over nice on the 4th string, 10, pulling off to 9, there's a root on 7. So again, you got the G shape, going to the A shape, okay. I think that covers it. Let's try number 3. Number 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. Shift position. What? Again, for me. So that's the idea, is that you're just lining them up. Yeah, that's pretty obvious. I don't know why I'm saying that at this point. But hopefully these are starting to catch on and you see da, 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 da. You can start moving around the neck. We got 2 more positions. Should probably do them. That's why we're here, right? Next one after the D shape, C, A, G, E, D. C. C comes after G. What? C, A, G, E, D. C comes after D. Which makes sense because, like, you can kind of see it's kind of, there's always common ground between 2 shapes, okay? So C shape, based off the 5th string, we're trying to find, no, I'm sorry. That's going to be for our 5 chord, the A chord. After the G shape, C, A, G, E, it's going to come E. At this point in the neck, we've used all 5 shapes, so we've already kind of reviewed all the positions so far. That's going to be E. If you've got an E chord, what's your closest 5 chord? Normally it's played with like a A option for a B chord, or you can play a B7, which is really like a C7, and that's how it's going to line up. We're going to have the E shape, and then we're going to have to dip down slightly beyond that. So let's play our game. So we got the 6th string root with our middle finger is going to be the E shape. That's our 1 chord. So that automatically places us from frets 9 through 12, and then the goal is to not move. So where's the closest A? Well, you got C sharp, D, E. Yeah, that's on right there. F sharp, G. Oh, there's an A. Oh, my pinky fell on it, and it's on the 5th string. It must be the C shape. Okay, so those are the 2 positions. Again, you got for the E and what for the 1 chord, the E shape. So that's based off of 12, whereas your 1 chord's based off of 10. That's pretty much it. That's all you got to do. Let's put it to the track. 1, 2, 3, 4. All day, line it up all day. Okay, so that's the E shape. When you have an E shape, it wants to resolve to the, well, not resolve. It wants to go to the C shape. That's your closest option if you're going to your 5 chord. Next, the last position, we got the D shape for a 1. Okay, if you're playing a D chord in a position, want to go to your 5 chord, you go to the A. So that's what it's going to do here. And funny enough, that's the key we're in. We're going D shape is going to go to the A shape when we go from the D chord to the A chord. That's how it works. So again, since we already done them all, we don't really need to spend too much time. Again, the D shape is going to have 2 starting below it. Then we can kind of do that. Again, that's going to line up if we're going to, we just played, oh no, yeah, I'm sorry. Let's play the game. So we got our D chord right here. And so essentially, if we're thinking about the position, we're essentially extending 11th fret up to the 15th fret. So we need to go to an A. Where's an A? Is it an A? That's an E. No, that's an F sharp. That's not going to work. That's a G. There's an A right there. And it's going to be too low for our pinky, so we're going to place our middle finger on it, which means we're on the A shape, which makes sense because we just came from the C shape, C, A, G, E, D, caged. So those are the 2 that are going to line up. Let's do it. Why don't we do it in the road? 2, 3, 4. Especially way up there, it's not going to be the most practical thing. Let me just tune for your... It's probably a little late for that, but... Pretty close. So, those are the 5 positions that you will need to practice again. This against. You want to have fun with it. Hopefully you play it all the time. Never leaves your side. You just keep going, keep it on. Then they'll sink in. Then you'll have some fun with them. Speaking of having fun with them, it's worth taking the time to just think about the pentatonic scales. So let's go back through and kind of just talk about that. Again, we're starting with the C shape, going to the G shape, so when you line up the 1 chord and the 5 chord pentatonic scale, just like the 4 chord, 1 and the 4 chord, you get a 1 note difference. So that's all there is. There's only a 1 note difference. And that doesn't become very obvious when you directly compare to positions, because that 1 note happens in 2, maybe 3 octaves. So you see several notes shifting, so the shape kind of loses its shape. as it morphs into another shape. But really, it's just one note. So it's really important. It's worth your time to kind of, if you're trying to really see how these line up, to just take 3 strings and see what they do. Okay, so for instance, if we're playing the C position for the 1 chord, it's going to go 2 4 3 5 2 5. And then when it goes to the A chord, which is the G shape, instead of going 2 4 3 5, it'll go 2 4 2 5, and then it's still 2 5 on the first string. So now, instead of it being all different, the top 2 strings are 2 and 5. So the only note that changes in there is your middle finger. That's the root of your 1 chord. Will resolve to the major third of the 5 chord. So when you're playing over there, it's really important to go. What? You can hear the changes going by because I'm specifically focusing around that one note. Again, it's good to know where your roots are, which is why we've played a lick that specifically goes root to root. So, yeah, you want to know where those, obviously, notes to resolve to are, but that one note difference is what really makes that change happen. And then you can do that for each group of strings. Okay, so that's groups 1, 2, and 3. Then you can do 2, 3, and 4. So that would be 2, 4, 2, 4, 3, 5. And then the F sharp is going to go up to a G. So instead of 2, 4, 2, 4, it's not going to go 2, 5, 2, 4, 3, 5. Again, that's the only note difference, so it's really important to kind of really see how that works. Let me just demo that a little bit. We can talk about the other ones that line up. That's the idea. 2, 3, 4. Again, sliding in the third is a nice little accent. So if you force yourself to always resolve on those notes, again, yeah, maybe it's taking a little bit of the magic out of it. Maybe you're not really being creative, but you are training yourself to hear those notes happen, that resolution, which is super important. And you're also physically finding it on the neck and building those reflexes. So that maybe later when you have more stuff under your belt, you don't necessarily have to do it, but you can at any given moment. And that's really going to be important. You'll find different, as you go through and get better at it, you'll find different ways to phrase it. But that's just something to think about. You should be thinking about each of these positions, 3 groups of 3 strings, a grouping of 3 strings, and seeing how that one note varies. And that'll happen, again, our one note difference is going to go G to F sharp. So let's find a spot, like for instance, if we're up here, we got, so our top 3 strings would be, if we're in the D shape, it would be 11, 14, 12, 15, 12, 14. Now that 11 and that 14 are the octave, and those are F sharp, so now they're going to go up a half step. So now it's going to go 12, 14, 12, 15, 12, 15. Let's hear how it sounds. It's going to sound exactly the same. Oh, wait a minute. Sorry, I was thinking 1 to 4. Let me take that back. If the one note difference between the 1 and the 5, the D to the A, is going to be D resolving to C sharp. So let's go down here. So if we have the G shape right there, did that backwards. It's going to go to the D shapes now. So those, both of those notes right there, 11, 7 and 10 are going to move back to 6 and 9. That's all of it. Everything else is staying the same. See how it sounds. So always trying to land that different note on the one. That's a very good exercise. You can have, you can go nuts with it all day in all 5 of these positions. So again, the bare minimum requirement is just to play the exercises as we practiced them earlier. But what really drives us home, whether this is something that you do simultaneously and you kind of really throw down on practicing, or whether it's, you get through the course and then you come back and you do the extra credit work so that it sinks in even more. That's, only you can know the answer to that. You're all at varying levels. You just want to put love in. If it's not comfortable, then it needs more love. So don't feel like you need to do all the things. That will sink in, I promise you, if you keep doing all this. So, yeah, and so 3 notes, pentatonics with groups of 3 strings, a very healthy exercise to do. Lining up just the licks is helpful to see how they resolve. Lining up just the chords, that's all helpful. But I also playing in other keys. And you can get creative with bends. I'm sure you noticed I was playing with bends. I was adding chromatic notes into it. Don't do all that. I mean, you can if you know what it sound like, but we're just trying to keep it simple, C shape lines up with E shape. And so hopefully you can start to hear those changes go by. We're going to go into another key in a second, but if I was to let's just recap really quick. That first position, your 1 chord is the C shape. Your 4 chord from last week was the G shape, and your 5, just kidding. Your C chord was the 1 chord, your 4 chord is the E shape, and your 5 chord is the G shape. So if I just play those licks in each one of those, you can hear the chord changes going. With the for country, it's going to be great for. Sometimes with rock, you're just rocking the minor. Right before this, that will layer well. Because it's one thing to play the change, especially if you never say specifically in that moment. Sometimes you just want to. In which case, you don't really have to overthink it. That minor pentatonic is going to work for you all the time, every time. Changes, and you should really get comfortable with that. So, with the remaining time, we're gonna and have some fun. Hopefully, it kind of you see the shapes relative to each other, less reliant on a specific phrase. They line up. Okay. Okay, so if we one chord, you could play an open G chord, but we're not going to use any open string. Middle finger on that note. So that'll be the E shape. E in the open position we established. It's going to be your B7. So if we have a G here, again, you can see it. 5th fret on the 6th string. And we're already, I'm going to tune again just for our 5 chord in the key of G is D. So we literally just practiced D all across the neck. And we just did this last week. We went D to G, which is 1 to 4. But now we're going to go G to D, which is 1 to 5. Did I say that right? D to G is 1 to 4. G to D is 1 to 5. All right, so we're in the key of G. Let's just review them all really quick, and we'll see how far we can go through them. Yeah, I don't want to throw you into the bus. We'll just do the first one. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. On the C shape. So that's like extra credit that you've already done because you did it last week. And that's the beauty of really understanding theory and how it layers on the neck. Instead of learning a billion songs, there are thousands, if not millions of songs that are just 1-4-5s out there, or variants of it, maybe in one minor chord. If you get really comfortable lining up all 1-4-5s, you've inadvertently learned all those songs everywhere on the neck. And like that's, if you're looking for efficiency, it's the way to go. Okay, so our next position, if we were going to G, would be a D shape. Right, that's going to line up with our A shape. So. What? You can keep going up the neck. You can just, there's so much to do. But it's all basically the same thing over and over again. I think I'm almost, I forgot to check the clock when I started, but I think I'm almost out of time, but I just want to, let's go back to the key of D really quick, and let's just talk about lining up chords in kind of 2 different positions. Again, this is all extra credit stuff. I just want to kind of get your gears churning, right? So if you got your D chord with a C shape and your A chord with a G shape, above it you got the D and E. So one thing you could do is just really go back and forth and just play those chords. And then wherever you land, when you resolve to the closest option. So we'll do that. We'll do each position 2 bars each. And then you'll transition to the closest option. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Going up to A. Resolving to the E shape. Going to the G shape. So you can kind of keep going back and forth all day with that. There's multiple options, especially if you're getting comfortable with the different string groups. You don't necessarily have to just do block. You could go. Start throwing little licks in there because you already understand the pentatonic scale that fits around it. Going in the 4 chord. You throw the blues scale in there with it too, it's gonna sound great. You can just have a field day with it. But the important thing is that you don't overwhelm yourself, you don't drop the groove. If you're dropping the groove, meaning you kind of fumble with the rhythm here and there, you need to tone it down a little bit. You want to keep it simple and just be able to jump back and forth between 2 positions if that's where you're at in this game. If 2 positions is too much, then don't add a third. Just go nuts. There's only 5 positions. There's billions of songs, but there's only 5 positions, and so you might as well just like have a staycation in one position if you need it, live in it for a day. And by a day, I mean a week. And by a week, I mean 2 to 4 weeks, maybe even. Maybe you just soak in the general information of this course, but you just really take the time. It's whatever you need. You will get there. Just keep focusing and keep having fun with it. Again, hopefully you're seeing the potential of where this is going and why we would do this. But in case you don't, or you're confused, maybe we should check and see if there's any questions. Let's do that. Oh, hey, JamPlay Nation. What's happening, guys? We're here for some questions because, we just want to make sure you understand what's going on. So, we got a question from Taco Tuesday. Typically, do you have to play the changes more over a 5 chord as opposed to the 1 chord and the 4 chord? Well, again, it's just the flavor that you want to give. You could rip a minor blues scale over the whole thing and it's going to sound good. But if maybe that's a sound that you like where you kind of just generally stick to the blues scale, but you kind of outline the 4 chord when the 4 chord hits. If the 5 chord comes up, it's good to be able to kind of identify the tones, be able to play it. So even if you don't want to use those, the point of this class is to get you to see where they are and what they sound like. So it's not the end of the world if you don't use them, but most players don't even realize they're there or how they layer. So that's why we're kind of taking this. So Imagine's got a question, a bunch of questions. Scott, so basically it's hard to answer your question. So Scott's question is essentially, how long does it take for something like this to kind of really sink in? And that's really a really difficult answer to give. Hopefully most of the people who think they're ready for a course like this, hopefully the material I'm giving isn't physically out of your range. Again, it's not about the licks in this course. It's more about seeing the shapes and seeing how they layer. So a good prerequisite for this course, if you're coming in cold, I mean, it's not to say that you won't pull stuff away from it, but in theory, a good prerequisite for this course would be to really have already known the 5 pentatonic positions, as well as hopefully potentially the cage positions as well. And so that you've already had a sort of a foot in the door, and now you just want to see what you can do with the majority of it and kind of really see its full potential. It takes years, honestly. Like, hopefully this course, hopefully you'll walk away in 10 weeks with like a much better understanding of really how to layer these things. Um, and if anything, just a 1 and a 4 chord. Even if you just walk away with that, that's exponentially more, twice the amount of scales that you were able to layer prior. If you could layer 1, 4, and 5, again, even when we go to minor, those are going to be the same 3 pentatonic positions that always layer. So and then it's just a question of like where you're at, as a player. Like, do you have good reflexes? Are you great with improv? Are you still kind of rocky with that? It can take a lot to really hone this in. I played at a church for I remember when I first was starting to figure this out, I was playing at a church for 2 years, and they didn't really care what I did. They just gave me charts with changes for songs I didn't really know. And I just applied this like crazy. You can literally apply this concept pretty much everywhere and anywhere once you understand it. And it just gets better and better and better the more you get better at it, the more you clock in some hours. As far as some of the songs that go, I think Chris mentioned that we're restricted as JamPlay for copyright, so we can't really do specific songs. But the elements that I'm giving you for this are the elements that you would find in some of those songs that are mentioned. So, for instance, they might not be in the exact time. For instance, Feeling All Right, Can't Always Get What You Want, 1 to 4, is 1 bar each. We've been doing 4 bar each. And so the idea behind that is that you just have a little more time to explore the positions and how they layer, but in theory, it's giving you all the elements to be able to do those very specific songs. And that's a great way to practice this stuff. Like, once you've gone through this course and got it on your fingers, just kind of picking random tunes that you really like. They're simple, easy chord songs like Dylan tunes or anything like that. Bob Marley tunes are really fun for it. Just anything with a simple progression, and just see if you can have a field day with it. The more you just got to clock hours. It'll take some time, but hopefully, even if you're a complete noober, you'll walk away kind of seeing some of these shapes and how they layer. Cool. Any other questions? Let's see. It looks like we might be good on questions for this week. Again, those positions, it can take a second to see how they layer. I put a little PDF in this week's class, in the folder for this week's course, kind of just a little column, I forget what you call it, a little chart, we'll say, where you kind of see the different cage shapes that line up. So, for instance, if you start with a C, your 4-chorded would be an E shape, and your 5-chord would be a G shape. Okay, that's how they're always going to work. Next week, again, we're going to continue to double down on this material. So, really, the first week, as long as you understood the first week, we'll get to apply it to 1, 4, 5 all at once next week. So, basically, all 3 weeks combined. For a lot of fun next week. So thanks for tuning in, hanging out, and we'll see you then. Cheers.